beautiful Canadian guest on, Lydia, the anti-vax advocate. What should I call you as a title, dear Lydia? Is that a good title?
Well,
Lydia, the anti-vax.
if I'm an advocate.
I meant to say advocate, not expert. Yeah.
If I'm an advocate for anti-vax, doesn't that mean I'm
stop. No, sorry, vaccination advocate. Oh my gosh, what a completely confusing. And I'm not
like,
the one with a back injury who took a painkiller.
Yeah,
but I'm up earlier than I would be. So yes, the vaccination advocate, who's very important to the narrative because we listen to people who've made that journey and we have a degree of trust that you see both sides. So voices like yours have that extra potency because we go, she understands, she's been in the thick of it with the natural moms going, how do we best protect our children, and getting sucked into what is presented with a veneer of science and a veneer of legitimacy and a lot of magical promises to protect your child from every known disease in existence, all through the magic of refusing to vaccinate, to understanding that was a trick and a cult love bombing technique to work with parental anxieties. And now you're past that and you're actively working to challenge that disinformation, those disinformation strategies. And you have some breaking news for us.
Yes. I just saw one of the disinformation dozen got deplatformed off of Facebook. Erin Elizabeth. She's one of the disinformation dozen drives about 65% of the anti-vax disinformation that is shared online. And there's a huge push to deplatform those 12 accounts. And Facebook has closed all of her accounts. And by her own claims, she has about 1 million followers or a reach to about 1 million people. So that is huge.
It is huge. And in terms of consequences, it'll probably have two types of consequence. One will be some people will be outraged and saying, they're trying to silence us, we will come back all the stronger. But some people might also say, wow, if there are people in positions of authority, even Facebook, which is not a government, it's a private business, saying we don't want to attract criticism from continuing to facilitate the spread of blatant disinformation. So this lady she's not even subtle. She's not subtle. She has to go. But that might make them question the validity of the anti-vax movement. So they can lose followers and also have some more motivated followers.
And just exponentially lose that reach, like the sharing of the sharing of the sharing, right? So she's got 1 million people she can't share information with that then won't in turn be shared.
I'm such a fan of deplatforming. It's been such a nice thing to watch various sort of Nazi affiliated people get deplatformed. And then some people will always say, oh, but I'm concerned if you don't listen to them, if you silence them, really, they just come back stronger than ever before. Very Star Wars. If you strike me down, I will come back stronger than ever before. And I always want to show that I understand that concern is there, but that I think the calculations should come down heavily in favor of deplatforming them, because like you say, their reach, they're always getting new people. It's tentacles that are allowed to spread over the world. And when you show leadership and make that decisive decision, no, there's free speech, and then there's shouting fire in a movie theater, and this is shouting fire in a movie theater, like people are going to stampede and people are getting crushed.
And it's creating like this hysteria, even with the shedding myths that are sharing, and it's just it's not helping. That's for sure.
I saw one interesting case story that you would find interesting if you wanted to project in the future, which is if your family had different dynamics. But there was some mum whose adult daughters were grown up, and she drove for 8 hours to see them for Mother's Day, and bringing them presents of some antiques she'd bought specifically for their house. And when she was nearly there, they called her and said, oh, actually don't come over because you're vaccinated and we were concerned that you'll shed and that it might impact our fertility, so you can't come. And like, oh, you couldn't tell her that at the beginning of the journey. Like they just struggled with it all for those 8 hours while their mom was driving. So a lot of the comments were like, wow, your daughters suck. And then she was like, no, they're great children. This is just a blind spot. And she ended up deleting her tweet. Obviously, it was getting so much attention. So many people were motivated to comment on it. But I thought, yeah, imagine that. Imagine having children who reject you on Mother's Day because of their embrace of disinformation about the vaccine.
Yeah. Then I saw another article about some people actually wearing masks now because they're worried about shedding. And I just thought, wow, we've come full circle, haven't we?
Yeah.
I just want to see if I just want to see if Hap's shared on my Twitter account here.
Absolutely. You check that. I'm going to see if I can put Jennifer Garner. There she is. Not for real Jennifer Garner, but a clip of Jennifer Garner saying that she's excited to be following some new CDC guidance that says you can, if you're fully vaccinated, you can stop wearing a mask indoors. And while I understand how that's going to raise the hackles of some cautious people who've lived through the trauma of a pandemic and also the trauma of a negligent federal government response under Trump, the Trump administration. So I understand it will upset people, but I'm also hopeful that this might invite more people on board, that Trump's out of office, because I know a lot of Trump vaccine hesitancy is associated with voter loyalty and voter admiration for Trump. And they're like, well, we're not going to comply with public health mandates. We're not going to get vaccinated because, you know, that's going to show we're loyal to Trump and his point of view about how the virus was a hoax and masking was a fascist imposition, etc. Trump didn't say masks were a fascist imposition, but a lot of Trump loyalists did imply that it was a democratic conspiracy to try and control the public. Molly's here noting that she's in Pennsylvania, there's still a mask mandate until Pennsylvania is 70% vaccinated. I wonder how that will interplay with the CDC advice, though, because that's, I guess, more generalized guidance at a national level rather than being a mandate. So maybe I guess it won't overrule the Pennsylvania mandate, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Mike says 2/3 of the country is not vaccinated. The CDC order is irresponsible, and logic says the numbers will rise again. Well, that's a good point that I'm happy to entertain and consider, Mike, because it's true that you haven't reached what seems to be the gold standard required of vaccination rates. And certainly it's different in different states as well. So I think the CDC was trying to motivate higher vaccination rates by suggesting that vaccination has this inducement of greater personal freedom, that you can shed the mask if you're fully vaccinated and have left a couple of weeks for your body to develop the requisite number of antibodies to fight off a case of exposure to the disease. Do you have any thoughts about it, Lydia?
I think giving any incentive to increase vaccination is good. I think having like a herd immunity threshold is a good idea. It kind of gives the population as a whole a goal to reach, and people will pay attention to that number.
Yes, they having a goal is always good for mobilizing efforts. Sean is wondering how many people will start just saying that they are vaccinated in order to not have to wear masks. And I think that brings up a good point for advertising, which is if you challenge people and say, you wouldn't lie about something like that, would you? Like if we trust you that you're vaccinated, you wouldn't lie, because some people will have that as an internal standard. Like they might say, I oppose vaccinations, but they wouldn't actively lie to pretend they were. Now, clearly there's a lot more people that don't have that problem, but I'm talking about the set of vaccine opposed people who still have a personal standard of not publicly lying about something that everybody else says is critical. Like maybe they'd lie about something that wasn't critical, but if we say this is critical, please don't lie about it, and put that into some kind of public service advertisements, I wonder if that could be useful.
In my province, they just mandated that if you claim to have an exemption, you better have a note from a doctor. So I have a brother, like we have our very politically, and he has in the past said, I don't have to wear a mask. I have an exemption. So whenever he's been questioned on that, and I just think, I wonder what he will do now that if he says that, he can be challenged and said, oh, like, where is your exemption then?
Certificate? Where is it? Yes.
Yeah.
Ted notes that in New York, where he is, Andrew Cuomo, the governor, says that the CDC guidance won't end the mask mandate yet. So that might be the same in Pennsylvania then, that the governor is stipulating that, yes, there's that CDC guidance. It's generalized. So they're saying, look, different states still have different applicability levels and different rates of vaccination. So they think it best to keep up that mask mandate. And I guess for states that really have experienced high rates of death and suffering, and a lot of American states have, they might know that their population overall is primed to continue to follow mask mandates while they're aware that there still are risks, that there still is community transmission happening, that there's still the risk of being exposed to the virus from somebody else, indoors particularly, in communal settings. So that does seem wise then to have governors making it clear at state levels that they have mandates that supersede that advice. And Molly notes that she's still going to wear a mask if she's around people she doesn't know. I think grocery stores here will still require masks. Oh, and Molly, in 5 minutes or so, would you like to jump on and say hi as well? Molly is awesome, Lydia. She works with pottery, with children who've experienced trauma, and is just generally creative and wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah. Mike says it would make logical sense that the people who don't want to be vaccinated are also against masks. He doesn't think it's an incentive. We already don't trust each other because of Trump. This will cause more distrust amongst Americans. You think it may cause more distrust, but I'd like to posit that, on the other hand, it might be an invitation to trust, to say, and I'm not wanting to say this definitively, I'm just speculating, because yes, the reverse may very well be true, and I want to entertain both ideas, but I'm at least trying to consider why the CDC might have done this, and if there's some advantages. And considering they have done it and I can't stop them, I'm hoping that there's a silver lining, and that regardless of what you say about all of the non-yet vaccinated people or Trump people, maybe some of them are just lazy people, and some of them can be mobilized into action. And Molly and also Lydia, I think, wanted to raise that point about the lottery in Ohio. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Lydia?
I don't know a whole lot about it, but I read that they have a lottery people can enter in Ohio if you're vaccinated. I think it's $1 million. And then for young people, I think they're toying with the idea for a scholarship. So,
wow.
So I think that's wonderful news. I think it will provide some incentive for people to get that maybe aren't anti-vax, but are just like,
yeah,
either or,
undermotivated, underwhelmed.
Yeah, I think it'll help.
Yeah, the lightly hesitant, members of the public who they're not yet vaccinated, and for Mike and anybody else with that point of view who want to say all vaccine hesitant people are that way because of Trump. I totally agree that there's a strong convergence between states and counties with low vaccination rates and Trump support. But I also want to consider that there is a subset of people who just haven't yet, who have that fallacy. I think you were mentioning it last time, Lydia, the bias towards inaction.
Yeah, there is a subset, and I think, the longer you don't do something and you're still fine, you just go, well, I didn't do it and I'm still fine today. And it gets easier to put something off. So I think for those people, if there's a little incentive of like maybe winning $1 million, they'll take the time out of their day to go, well, I guess I'll get my vaccine. But yeah, there's definitely an appeal to inaction, and it kind of gets easier the longer you don't act. So.
Yes. So speed is of the essence, because that appeal to inaction that Lydia is referencing is when something's contentious. There's any degree of contention, and you say, well, there's potentially a negative outcome associated with both things, so I'm told. So if I just don't do anything, then I'll feel less guilt when one negative outcome happens, because if I actively do something and something bad happens, then I feel more personally responsible.
Exactly.
So I'm just going to pick the bad outcome that happens that is associated with inaction.
Yeah, and we talked about that when I wasn't vaccinating my children. That was a lot of the psychology behind it was, if I vaccinate and something horribly goes wrong, I will feel like I can blame myself. But if I don't vaccinate and it's just left up to chance and chaos, and it's not quite my responsibility, it's that's the appeal to inaction. And then the longer that nothing goes wrong, you kind of validate your choice of doing nothing.
Yes. When neither bad outcome happens, it validates your inaction, your choice to at least risk the bad outcome that people said was going to happen if you didn't vaccinate. And you're like, hey, I didn't vaccinate, nothing bad happened. And it's like, yes, they never said it would happen immediately, but the point is your inaction choice is validated by the failure to appear magically of your children being struck down with measles or secondary encephalitis, secondary to measles.
And I can't help but feel that in a poorer country where these diseases are endemic, that the appeal to inaction is not there. Like, you're rushing. These people are lining up for hours to get their children vaccinated. There's no, so it does definitely have
because
to
there's less herd immunity.
Yeah. So they're not standing around doing nothing. They're going to get up at 5 a.m. and take the 2-hour hike down to the clinic and wait in line all day to get their child vaccinated, because they don't have that luxury.
Yes. Although disinformation can still take hold in relatively impoverished communities as well. And then they can go, okay, I've been told that it's all a plan of the colonialist oppressors to weaken us by vaccinating us.
Yeah.
But yes, that is a good point, that it can be a function of wealth. When things are already comfortable for you, the appeal to inaction works more readily, because you look around, it's things are okay. I don't have to jeopardize that. I'm being told that vaccinating my children could potentially open the door to a negative outcome. So I could just keep things as they are. I'm wealthy. I don't look around and see a measles outbreak. Of course, over time, as the anti-vaxxers have penetrated into more and more communities and the vaccination rates have fallen, leading to an overturning of the herd immunity principle, because you have to have herd immunity quite high, herd immunity via vaccination to be quite high for it to work. When it plummets below, I think, is it 90 or 80%?
Every vaccine is
different, yes, because of the inherent infective properties of the disease. So yes, but measles is so contagious, you have to have something like a 93%.
It's 95, 93, 95. It's very high.
95% vaccination rate to close off the opportunities for measles to spread. And when vaccinated people are fewer and fewer, or below 95%, the gaps are sufficiently large for measles to spread through a community, and it being so infectious, it then first of all can get to all those people who for various reasons can't be vaccinated, not by choice, but because maybe they're immunocompromised, or they've had a heart transplant, or they're undergoing chemotherapy, etc.
Yes.
Now Molly's saying she has to go find a shirt, which is awesome. Take your time, Molly, because I'm so happy to have Lydia on again, and then so many opportunities that open up for me when I open myself to talking to other people, which is, I think, great. I think the dynamic of having people to chat to is more fun for me, so I hope that plays out as well.
And I have fun coming to the live stream too. I had so much fun last time. I was like, I got to do that again. It was fun.
I'm totally going to get you to, well, not get you to. We're not a totalitarian society here. I'm going to invite you to join Clubhouse, and then we could do this live stream and also use our microphones and simultaneously broadcast to Clubhouse. It might work. We can try with just a private room with you and I.
I'm not sure what that is. I'm new to all this.
I'll tell you, and I'm going to tell my audience as well, because if they ever want to join Clubhouse and then follow me and increase my clout, I'm getting to go on what they call stages. It's an app. It's yet another social media platform app, but it's got a lot of buzz to it, which also means it's got a lot of anti-Semitic infiltration. But aside from that, any new social media platform where they haven't worked out yet how to find a balance between free speech and letting hate speech flourish.
Yes.
It's a vector for these conversations. It's audio only, and they get people who are experts in their field and have the time and the inclination to just give back, and they go in little meeting rooms, and any audiences members can go in. But if you're somebody followed by one of the moderators, then they can invite you up into a stage, which means you're at the top of the queue and you might be called on to speak or ask a question. It's really cool, because I'm an Australian living in Singapore, planning to move to America, potentially run for some kind of public office at some point in the future, and I can talk to people who've been employed as legislative assistants and legislative directors. I've been listening into people who are producers for Netflix and things, have conversations about how to approach script writing. So I'm encouraging my followers to explore Clubhouse, but now I'm going to wrench myself back to the topic at hand because, and Anthony Fauci, he just tied all in. He joined Clubhouse the other day and he was on a questions session where he's the speaker, and then anybody in the audience who's nominated to get a turn can ask him a question, and it's very relatively respectful dialogue.
It's like a democratic Q&A where people are like, you ask, that's a good one, you go up there, so the trolls would be at the very bottom, maybe. Yes, you don't get trolls because it's facilitating sort of networking. Like, you've heard someone speak and you're like, that's a sensible question, they have good insights, so you follow them, and then next time the moderator sees them, they elevate them, and it does lift conversations. You do have to check what is the title of the room you click onto to enter, because I once saw someone I recognized and went, oh, that's an interesting person, I'll follow them into this room. It was the middle of the night in the US, and it was a very, very heavily sexual discussion, and I was not prepared for that. Just the first comment, I was like, oh, wrong room. There's a button that says leave quietly, and I was like, leave quietly. I'm so glad I've got my earphones on and my children aren't in the room right now, because that would have messed some things. There would have been a lot of questions about that. 10 seconds of unexpected conversation content, and they would have been like, what's that and that and that, and what is it, what? I would have been like, big questions. Oops.
Oh, Sheldon's joined us. Hello, Sheldon.
I remember Sheldon. Sheldon was with us last time, wasn't he?
He was. He is a regular listener, and a Patreon supporter. Bless you, Sheldon. So is Molly. Dr. Kaczynski said something like more like a cult. I don't know if can you see these comments as well?
I can, and I don't. It didn't make sense to me at the part of what we were talking about.
Yes, there might be
I was confused by that.
Might be a delay because he's making a comment about Trump earlier. So it might relate to the fact that he's saying that Trumpism is like a cult.
Yeah.
But maybe Dr. Kaczynski will elaborate on that. I'm scrolling back just to see if I've missed anything, because I know I was slow to start.
I can see Perry saying he thinks proof of vaccination should be a prerequisite for government jobs, healthcare jobs. I think anything that has to do with public funds and public dollars should follow public health. I think that there should be a standard that they all follow, and I think vaccination should be one of them.
It's a good starting point, isn't it? If you say public dollars and public jobs, taxpayer-funded jobs should follow public health guidelines, which are key to public health, then yes, I think that's a good point he's making, and I'm guessing the Biden administration will adopt that. It's interesting to see what people will adopt, because there's probably more appetite to be decisive and to show leadership and have a little bit of pushback against the American mantra of freedom, freedom, freedom. To say, look, we've just suffered a significant loss. 600,000 deaths is not a doddle. It's not a whoops aberration. It's the downside of American the limits to American anti-government sentiment.
With freedom, your freedoms are also responsibilities. And they think that the responsibility is to buck everything and just do what they want. But you also have a responsibility to your community, and you also have a responsibility to your family. And, you know, like it or not, we're all in it together. Like, I know that's been said so much, it's kind of lost all meaning, but, you know, they want to talk about like rights, but with rights, there's responsibilities, and it's not always just bucking authority and doing what you want like a petulant child.
Absolutely. Newt Gingrich once had a pamphlet of phrases that he distributed around to Republican politicians saying, we have to have consistency of message. Everybody should begin using these phrases repetitively to refer to Democrats. So just to adopt that tactic, I would love to see some more consistency of messaging from Democrats to call Republicans radically irresponsible. Because yes, whilst everybody agrees that freedom sounds like a good word, there's interconnectedness and acknowledging that my freedom to swing my fist has a limit, and it has a limit within a fairly substantially close radius to your face.
Yeah. There's a good article. I'll find it for you. It's about vaccine mandates are actually like friends with liberty because of that swinging fist argument you just made. But it's a really good article, because a lot of libertarians think like there's no way that there should be any kind of mandate. But when you're potentially harming people, then that ends there.
And that's what's supposed to be the function of a democracy, is that when there are challenges, when there are problems, we're supposed to be able to meet together to have those debates honestly and in good faith, to say, yes, there's freedom, but freedom in this instance needs to be constrained by public health considerations, or it's freedom that encroaches on my freedom to exist and to have a business and to flourish, because a lot of economic damage was caused by Trump's assault on public health as well. Yes. So I realize the only thing I have forgotten to do so far is say hello to Knowledge, who was the first person to comment, and he said hello. So I'll just say hello to Knowledge, and sorry it took me 27 minutes to say hi back, but I got there. And if you're still here, and we have somebody from the HAPS team who's joined in with us, David Newman. Hello, David. He says hello from Los Angeles. So that's always a bit of a privilege when somebody from the HAPS team drops by. Molly is back. She had to put the bat in her bed too. So that's another awesome thing about Molly, is caring for wildlife.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that what we're calling our children now? That's what I was thinking when I read that comment. It's like, that's a new one.
Molly has a bat. Are you, Molly, are you involved with caring for wildlife that you find that have been injured? Or is this just, I'm presuming that there's an injury involved and you're helping a bat recuperate and convalesce back to health. Sheldon's put up a link that says, excellent short. I'm going to just say hello to my husband. Hang on. Hi, honey. How are you?
Good. I'm going to head out.
Well, then goodbye. Have a good time. Excellent short history of Trumpublican history. So, all right, Sheldon, I don't think I can click on that link from here. So maybe if you direct message it to me, then I'll get that and can include it in a subsequent broadcast. Molly says those are rugrats. Lydia, she's quantified the difference. She has bats,
yes,
as opposed to rugrats. And your children are too old to be. Actually, no, you've still got a 4-year-old, don't you? You've got one 4-year-old, or is it
Who,
3?
me? I have my youngest is almost 3, and then my middle is almost 6, and then I have a 13-year-old.
13-year-old. Got a broad spread of still being in the thick of parenting and probably toilet training and just generally acculturating them to the world.
It's been hardest with the youngest because of COVID. So I've been putting him in childcare here and there just so he can play with other kids, because there's huge developmental, milestones that require socialization. So it's been it's been a
and
hard.
They're so willing to learn from children their own age. There's such an intimidation factor between adults and children. So yes, there's benefits of exposure.
It's been hard. I've always had like my threshold in town where if cases went above 10, because I live in a small town, then we would stay home and hunker down. But I had to strike a balance because I didn't want my kids missing opportunity to grow and learn.
Yes. Well, it's interesting to speculate actually about how different would our response to the pandemic have been if children were affected, because I think an undercurrent of Republican values complemented the pandemic in the fact that I often think eugenics and social Darwinism are drivers of Republican philosophy, thinking, we're all in it for ourselves, and that's the negative side of it. To be nice and balance it out with something a little bit more idealistic, I could say many Republicans are motivated by a drive to conserve what's good about society. So they see themselves as the conservators, and then Democrats will be those who pursue justice and improvement. And the Republicans are like, we're here to make sure you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And in fact, we're very attached to this baby. And in fact, we'd kind of probably prefer not to pay taxes at all if we can get away with it, to go to the most negative side. But yes, ostensibly Republicans should be there to say, let's not just pretend that taxes don't incur a cost. The benefit of collecting taxes is we can make strong infrastructure that actually allows corporations to grow and flourish in the first place, and people to have businesses and financial gains. Hooray. But where have I gone with this? I've gone with this because if children were affected, I think that would have made there to be a lot more bipartisan pressure on Trump to do a better job. If it was clearly children who were the principal people suffering and dying because of COVID.
It's your internet or my internet?
I think it was you just then.
No, it's my internet.
Yeah.
It's going to take a minute to catch up.
Sheldon. Okay, first of all, Molly's caught us up with that she volunteers at a bat sanctuary, and she was injured when someone hit the mother with a broom. Oh, and she was a baby, and now you're putting her to bed. That's very cute. Sheldon notes that he believes a lot of Americans will continue wearing masks long after COVID subsides. There has been a dramatic reduction of the yearly flu season thanks to mask wearing. Well, that's a great point, Sheldon, and it's prompting me to raise the fact that in Asian countries, there used to be a relatively high base level of mask wearing prior to COVID, which could have been as a response to SARS or might have been a cultural artifact preceding that. I don't know. But I do know that I used to see people from an Asian background wearing masks and think, oh, does that mean they're sick? Or I thought that was an unusual practice. And now I completely am viscerally on board with the logic of it. And I can see how it's a courtesy that human beings expel lots of respiratory particles, many of which contain viral particles or bacterial particles, and how it's a lovely, courteous thing to do as part of an interconnected human members of a society. Lydia's back. Hello.
I know my internet cut out. It does that sometimes. I live in the mountains.
And the good thing is, I mean, obviously it's not perfect to have imperfect internet access, but we work with imperfection, and I'm always here blabbing away in any case. So we've got each other's back. If my internet cuts out, I know you won't be short of something to say as well. So
I'll find something. I'll just look at the comments and just go from there.
Exactly. There's a wealth of stuff to talk about. Bye, darling. Bye-bye. I hadn't spoken to my husband at all since he got up this morning because, I just have been broadcasting since he woke up. So when I heard him making noises like he was going to leave, it felt unnatural to me. I'm like, I have to connect with you. Yes, I didn't.
I know my husband has been working night shift this whole week, and it's like we never saw each other because it's work all night, these 12-hour shifts, sleep as much as you can, eat, and then go back to work. So, yeah.
Got to work around that disruption, and it's harder to get quality sleep when you're on night shift as well because, you're not habituated to sleeping during the day or whatever it is. And, Oh, Phil has dropped in and he says Rubio, Trump, Ernest, McConnell, and who knows how many other Republicans have gotten vaccinated. They know better, but try to sell the individual choice as an alternative. Yes. So again, placing that emphasis on the Republican priority of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes allows Republicans to then castigate Democrats with a narrative of Democrats are opposed to freedom. And I know that Trump certainly used that narrative to promote himself as a candidate for re-election, to claim that Democrats were meanies trying to damage the economy, which was a lie because the economy was fundamentally damaged because COVID was allowed to ravage the country unchecked, because in no small part, Trump's failure to alert the public to how contagious it was and how deadly it was, not just in a way that's limited to older people who've had enough time on the planet anyway, but that it was broadly dangerous, airborne, infective through the mechanism of air, i.e. fine droplets that hang around in a room that are easily transmitted between people in close proximity. And he didn't tell that to the public, and he knew it. He told it to Bob Woodward, who could have published it at the time, but I guess knew that it would make more impact later on. So you do what you think's right, Bob Woodward. It's already done now. And then did not have a national testing strategy, which would have limited the spread of COVID. And instead, he inspired evil dictators. Oh, I'll try not to use the word evil. He inspired irresponsible dictators all over the world to use it as a strategy for appeal to the underinformed, to say, oh yeah, we love you, population. We're not going to impose hardships on you like lockdowns or masks. We love you. We're just going to let nature take its course, appeal to inaction in a way. And that's hurt people. That's taken hundreds of thousands of lives in India and in Brazil. And I think Tanzania was one place I heard yesterday where a dictator followed that Trump pattern of saying it's a beat up. It's a hyped construct and it's not a real problem.
Yeah.
And for a while there, Trump was modeling that. And as a parent, I'm big into, you model behaviors you want people to emulate. Well, Trump modeled behavior that other people did emulate and other leaders in powerful positions did emulate with tragic consequences. So Lydia knows all about the lower down cronies of Trump at various levels, like Andrew McCullough. Is he really a doctor, or is he a doctor of chiropractic? He might be one of the
he's an osteopath, I think.
An osteopath, okay.
And I think I don't know, maybe your internet connections is better to Google it, but I think Erin Elizabeth is his wife.
I'll have a look.
And she just got deplatformed, which I'm pretty sure beats McCullough's next. We can hope.
Oh, it does come up with the word McCullough. So yes, Joe McCullough's girlfriend, Erin Elizabeth Finn. Okay, so she was his girlfriend at least in February 2020. She looks quite a lot younger than him.
That's because he tans so much he looks like a baseball glove.
Oh, because the
he really believes in his UV tanning beds and uses them often. So,
oh my gosh, tanning beds. That's a carcinogen.
He actually got dinged by the FDA for saying his tanning beds were safer than other tanning beds and wouldn't cause cancer.
They're the non-cancer causing tanning beds.
He got in huge trouble for that.
Yeah, through the power of magic. My tanning beds are different. Perry Pilot's been able to read the post that Sheldon linked and said that was an interesting blog post, pretty accurate summary of the GOP. So how come Perry Pilot could click on the link and I couldn't? Maybe if I just copy it, I can copy and paste it. Nope, I cannot copy it. But maybe other people can. All right.
I might lose internet again, just so you know. Maybe I don't have to answer.
Yeah, well, I take that warning on board, and when I see you vanish, I'll know you're not putting bats to bed, but you live in the mountains, which is probably very beautiful. So the upside is you get replenished. No. Oh, Sheldon sent it to me on Twitter. Okay. Well, actually, before I check Twitter, I'll go back to
pictures.
Are you going to send me pictures? I'm going to play Jennifer Garner for a second while I drink some water. So I'm going to take you and I off screen just for a second, so that I can hit play and hear her celebrate.
We are thrilled to just get back to normal. It's so exciting. I kind of can't believe that I'm standing here without a mask on, looking at maskless faces. And we owe that to President Biden, and we owe that in large part to Governor Justice. This is, President Biden said he would get us vaccinated, and boy, did he mean it. We are thrilled to just be getting back to normal. It's so exciting. I kind of can't believe that I'm standing here without a mask on, looking at maskless faces.
Wow, her voice is so high. She's adorable. Actually, am I even audible? Okay, so I'll put us back on. He said she's so excited when President Biden said he was going to get us all vaccinated. Boy, did he mean it. And I think it's a public, I'm presuming then there's an element of public relations in that they're saying we need to take the time to celebrate how rapidly America is getting vaccinated, so that people know that it's not an imposition for the sake of wielding power, that it is a pathway to public health and a pathway to resumption of economic activity and a resumption of relatively normal human interactions. And that's why. So they've decided that overcoming, or at least any strategy to try and overcome that remnant of not remnant, they're really sizable, that sizable chunk of America that is vaccine hesitant, that they need to be swept up in a enthusiastic embrace of what vaccinations facilitate, and that is a pathway to resuming normal life and normal economic activity levels. John says 13 going on 39. Is that in reference to a Jennifer Garner movie? Because I think it is. I think she starred in a movie, 13 going on something. She's got that great high-pitched voice for playing a character that switches bodies with a teenager.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I saw a movie called Yes Day, I think, with her in it, in which she plays a mother who's quite strict. And then
I'm just gonna go check something real quick.
Okay, I'll see you soon.
Be right back.
So it's delightful to see all my audience saying hello to each other. Molly's saying hello to Kim. Kim's saying hello to Sheldon and Phil and Molly. It is lovely to see you again. I'm going to note that John asked me to broadcast again. I had a couple of days off. I'm in Singapore and there was a public holiday and another day. So I had a couple of days off as well as having a weekend off for Mother's Day. Did you have a good Mother's Day, Lydia? I haven't said Happy Mother's Day to you, I don't think. Oh, you didn't hear me. I saw you approaching the chair and I started to talk ahead of time. I said, how was your Mother's Day? I don't think I'd wished you.
My Eggs Benny.
Eggs Benedict, yep. Nice. Oh, can't hear you, Lydia, so I'm going to presume you
Maybe
are.
You're not getting.
Oh, I heard that.
The question. Yeah. Oh, my internet's really slow. Hopefully that.
Well, I'm gonna wait because maybe your internet needs time as well as love. So I'll keep listening out for you.
Really delayed right now, I think.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lag. John wants to know if I've had a Singapore sling. I haven't.
And see if that helps.
Yeah, might help. And Sheldon's been looking for the Benjamin Button elixir. It's probably just maintaining a childlike spirit so that you still have fun and don't entirely get your brow with the furrow lines of someone who perpetually dwells on crises in the world. And I know I have a little bit of a tendency to do that. I noticed yesterday that if I read an article about climate change, I feel very drained of energy. And so having thought about that, about my psychological response and then physiological response to that kind of news, and seeing that, yes, it's a very intractable problem, that there are moves to try and change things, but even those moves sometimes seem illusory and insufficient in response to this, what is an existential threat. And as a parent, it's very distressing for me to think that have failed my children, or that my generation and the surrounding generations have failed our children. So specifically, when you act and you've made that step to bring children into this world, it's hard to feel that you haven't been able to tackle a problem that could significantly jeopardize their future and their ability to live a comfortable and fulfilling life going forwards. So noting that about myself, that I have such a strong reaction to climate change stories. What can I do about it? I worked on a strategy, which is to be emboldened by the history of the civil rights movement, because that's not just a history, that's a present day movement. The people fighting for equal justice under the law now, the people fighting for the passage of the George Floyd and Police Justice and Policing Act, that is an ongoing struggle that could, if you let it, sap your very will to live, because injustice is a thief of energy and a thief of joy. But
I think
my internet's better. Hey, you rebooted it. I'm saying that while injustice can feel like a thief of joy and a thief of energy, resolve to fight, and the ability to notice other people who are fighting, and the resolve to join with them, to take on a good fight, to oppose injustice, and to work for the betterment of your community and for your species, that can give you energy. Because I just had remarked, Lydia, that I noticed when I read any articles about climate change and how it's the prognosis of it, I get really sapped of energy and I feel really deflated and drained. And then I was pleased that at least I've noticed that pattern, so that I can consciously try and remedy it by hitching my wagon to advocacy movements, to learning more about how to persuade people, how to build momentum to change things culturally and legislatively, so that we help each other.
My husband, he likes to remember, like, he really believes in the innovation of human beings. And he believes that we will solve this problem. Even just look at, I don't know if you've heard of Boyan Slat. He was 16 and he came up with a way to collect all the plastic in the oceans. Have you heard of him? You've never heard of him?
I feel like I've heard of a boy who was trying to address the not the Bermuda Triangle, the Great Garbage Triangle.
Yes. And he created a device that would skim all the plastic off of the oceans. And it just takes one really innovative human being to come up with a scientific solution to these issues, that, ways to capture carbon, ways to, shift the temperature trajectory the other way. So I when I start to feel like sad or hopeless about our situation, I just try to remember, like, we are a very innovative species, and
we're very creative. We can make up all kinds of conspiracy theories, but the flip side is that we generate a lot of solutions, a lot of extremely ingenious, creative solutions to problems that we have. So yes, there's no point ever giving up or succumbing to damp feelings for very long. You got to keep hitching your wagon to not only the innovators, but also to the legislators who sometimes make space for those innovations to flourish, because we have increasing renewable technologies, but we also need legislators who will funnel public subsidies towards those industries and away from fossil fuel industries, but nicely, and still providing retraining opportunities and new employment opportunities for the people whose lives will be altered by our.
I think, and another thing too, in the meantime, while we're still using them, I think using local should be priority. So like when our governments, are hauling oil over here in tankers, when, we have it here and we can employ our own people for it. I mean, the fuel is going to be used regardless. It may as well be our own.
Yes, the preferencing locally produced energy sources, yes, and also developing locally produced and locally produced energy sources.
Yeah,
like you can have wind farms and you can have solar battery farms. They don't just produce themselves. That's American manufacturing or Canadian manufacturing. So I think that's a strength of President Biden, that he appeals to the working class and says, hey, for those people who earn a salary and earn a wage, and they don't just get an income from their stocks. They don't just derive money from their stock portfolio. They actually have to be able to have a job that they can keep getting up and going to. That he wants to emphasize his strategies for increasing the amount of jobs on offer, and that he sees the challenges of climate change as being a job creation challenge as well, that there is so much opportunity to create good paying jobs. And that's an argument that, when said authoritatively by someone with a long history of public service and a high public profile, being a vice president for what is fundamentally a popular administration, because the Biden administration is still historically very popular overall, even though there is a large subset of Americans who literally think that Obama was the devil and a Muslim and other things that seem to be informed by racist biases. That yes, Joe Biden, popular vice president, making a commitment to generating jobs for people and saying, look, climate change response is an invitation for job creation and government-led flourishing of industry. Yay, thanks, Joe Biden, for couching it positively. Sheldon notes that microplastics have invaded all life on the earth, found in the air, sea, and ground, but also within our bodies. It is unknown how detrimental these particles are to life. Oh, yes. Have you heard, Lydia, that we apparently all eat about a credit card-sized amount of plastic each month? I just remember being horrified by that statistic when I first heard it.
Don't quote me on this. I think I read an article that they found microplastics in umbilical cord blood.
Sure they did.
I want to say that I read that somewhere. I'm not going to say verified 100% because I don't like, saying anything without 100% certainly. But I think I read that somewhere that
it's a credit card size worth of microplastic a week, which means it's definitely going to be in umbilical cord blood, because it's inside us. We're eating a baby food size jar amount of it a year. So I mean, when we think about everything we do, like washing our clothes when we're wearing man-made fabrics, that's putting a lot of
polyester,
tiny filaments of
or when you change your lint trap of your dryer. I think about that sometimes. When you change the lint trap and all that dust, like half of that dust is plastic fibers from your clothing, like easily, and you're breathing that in.
We're breathing it in. We're just putting it into our world, and we have the convenience of plastic, and we're anticipating that there's going to be some inconvenience down the track. Just as early industrialists didn't necessarily anticipate that burning fossil fuels would lead to an overall increase in planetary temperature, we didn't anticipate, when humans were ingeniously inventing plastics, that there was going to be potential downside. And now we don't even know what that downside is, but I can certainly say for wildlife, marine life that consume plastics, and we can see that their stomach is crowded out, so that they die of starvation because they can't fit actual nourishing food into their stomach. Their stomach is blocked. So that's not microplastics, I guess. That's birds and fish that consume actual chunky bits of plastic. We don't know so much what the embedded microparticles are going to do to us.
And then plastic also holds contaminant, non-polar contaminants really well. Like it absorbs, benzenes and toluenes and all kinds of, petroleum type chemicals, and then the animals eat that and they're exposed to these carcinogens, and that's why you're seeing, you know, whales with giant tumors and whatnot, because it is just such a magnet for pollution.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, I'd love it if you almost just repeated yourself there, but with any more explanation that you can add, because those were some terminology, that was some terms that I'm not familiar with. I've heard the word benzenes before, but there was some other, what did you say?
So they're called BTEXs. It's benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene. They are aromatic petroleum compounds that are very carcinogenic and are very, like, they cause a lot of pollution and do a lot of environmental damage.
Okay, so aromatic petroleum compounds that are very carcinogenic. See, I use a lot of Vaseline as like a skin barrier type of thing, and I don't have a problem with that. It's got the word, it's a petroleum derivative, but I'm sure some are in forms that are more unstable or more, I don't know, more likely to be a carcinogen. But I haven't really looked into it.
It's just because of the shape of the molecules, they tend to store in animal fats and tissues quite easily. And yeah, they're not good. And so plastics tend to hold on to these, and then the animals eat the plastics, and they're kind of contaminated with those pollutants that end up from like oil spills or illegal dumping or whatever, however they end up in the water.
It does remind me of, there was an American health advocate at one point, and he claimed to be a health advocate who was a big fan of a theory. So I'll call him a crank. He was a health crank who had a lot of followers. And I'll Google his name in a second, but he was an advocate for eating Vaseline, for eating petroleum jelly, because he thought the fundamental thing that was wrong with Americans was constipation. He was like, if you poop more easily, then you're just keeping everything moving through your system. Americans' problems is that they're mentally constipated, intellectually constipated, and physically constipated. Are you saying you've heard of him as well? Yeah, because he had all these followers who would then follow his example and eat petroleum jelly.
Yeah, and there's actually in Canada anyway, an over-the-counter flavored petroleum jelly to give to kids that are constipated.
Wow! So that's it's still a thing.
It's called Lance oil. It's still a thing, and it doesn't really get absorbed very. It's too big of a particle to actually get absorbed into your body. But what it does is it traps fat-soluble vitamins in it. And so if you overuse that as a treatment for constipation or anything, you become deficient in vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, like all the fat-soluble vitamins. So it actually can long-term lead to issues with absorbing certain things. Now you know. Wow. See, I hold a lot of like weird information up here.
It's awesome. It's awesome that you do that. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Fat-soluble vitamins that you'll become deficient in if you eat Vaseline, because
it traps them, and then you just excrete them. You don't absorb them because you can't absorb the petroleum jelly. So then the vitamins that get trapped in there also can't be absorbed.
So it's facilitating the overly hasty excretion of nutrients that you need. So it's like, you poop easily, but you also poop out the nutrients that you might have otherwise absorbed, because there's no opportunity anymore for your small intestinal.
Well, they're just really soluble in fats. So and petroleum it's not a fat, but it's oil based, right? So anything that's fat soluble is also oil soluble and will dissolve into petroleum jelly or baby oil or whatever. Some people eat mineral oil for the same reason.
Marsha's here, and she wants to know what soda you just drank. She's curious about your Canadian beverages. Did you drink something? Do you have a bottle with you?
Oh, no.
No. Okay. Oh. Good. Okay, I'll move on from that. Maybe Marsha's question relates to something else. Marsha also notes that we give a petroleum product to cats for hairballs. So again, yes, that's helping poop out a potentially obstructive thing, I guess. Where do hairballs get stuck in their trachea or their esophagus? Anyway, some cat owner can tell me about that. But in the meantime, I just want to note that this man who...
In their stomach, I think.
In their stomach, okay. I've just found the American chemist.
What soda did I just drink? Coke Zero.
Coke Zero. Sir Robert Augustus Cheeseborough was
Someone asked me what soda I drink.
Was an American chemist who discovered petroleum jelly, which he marketed as Vaseline, and founded the Cheeseborough Manufacturing Company. Why is he a sir if he's American? Oh, because he was born in England. And he died in 1933 at the age of 96. So, wow. He began his career as a chemist, clarifying kerosene from the oil of sperm whales. And then in Titusville, Pennsylvania, they discovered petroleum that rendered his job obsolete. So then they stopped having to hunt so many sperm whales, and he traveled to Titusville to research what new materials might be created from this new fuel. Well, that's fascinating. He patented the process of making petroleum jelly. He used to test it on his own cuts and burns, and unable to sell it to any drugstores, he traveled around New York demonstrating his miracle product. In front of an audience, listen to this, Lydia, he would burn his skin with acid or an open flame and then spread the clear jelly on his injuries while demonstrating past injuries, healed, he claimed, by the miracle product. In reality, Vaseline does not heal cuts or burns. It forms a layer causing dirt to not get in, because in his day, one of the leading causes of death and disease were due to open wounds becoming infected. So that's interesting. He claims to have eaten a spoonful of Vaseline every day, but he did live to be 96 years old. So presumably then it's not necessarily actively toxic as long as you're eating enough fat-soluble vitamins that trapping your fat-soluble vitamins in Vaseline causes you to become significantly deficient. And Molly's helping to clarify hairballs for us. She says in their stomachs is where cats keep hairballs. It can't pass into the intestinal tract, so that's why you give a petroleum-based product to cats for hairballs to lubricate those hairballs right out of the digestive tract. So that's something interesting I've learned today about the inventor of Vaseline, that he lived to be 96, because from what I'd read, people who were the followers of the man who recommended everybody eat Vaseline every day, you could squeeze their livers when they died and it would squeeze out this oily substance, i.e. their livers were keeping the Vaseline. But maybe it wasn't that malignant, it just was there in their liver. Yes, if he lived to be 96, it at least wasn't actively toxic, so toxic that it prematurely ended his life. I think Lydia's internet connection is fading in and out. And Sheldon's noting that Titusville, Pennsylvania is known to be the first place oil was discovered. Yes, and that's why Sir Robert Cheeseborough traveled to Titusville to find out what new substances he could make from petroleum after oil was discovered, because his old job was rendered obsolete. He used to render kerosene from oil, from blubber, from sperm whales. Remember how people used to have lanterns? And that's why there were a lot of whales being harpooned, and Moby Dick and everything like that. And now we have a resurgence of the whale population, but the amount of marine traffic creates so much noise that it's probably very discouraging to whales to breed, because it's probably quite torturous to live in the oceans if you get acoustic sound bombs going off all the time.
Aren't we wonderful?
And Sheldon says that whales are still hunted for their byproducts, i.e. perfumes. Oh, yes, because there's some small balls. Whale
ambergris.
Ambergris, that's the substance.
Ambergris, yeah.
a solid, waxy, flammable substance expelled by a whale. But people also hunt the whale. So whales expel it, but it's probably quite hard to just find a lump of ambergris in the ocean.
Yeah. It'll sometimes wash up on shore, but it's pretty rare.
Oh, so it's not that in itself it smells beautiful. It's a fixative that allows the scent to endure much longer. So when you wear your perfume, if it lasts for a long time, it could be because of this whale byproduct. But it's been mostly replaced by synthetic ambroxide. Dogs are attracted to the smell of ambergris and are sometimes used by ambergris researchers. Well, isn't that interesting? People must have just experimented with things like, oh, look, I found this lump of gray stuff from a whale. Let's see if it makes my perfume last long. Let's mix it with things.
The interesting ones are the weird things people eat. Like someone had to look at that and go, I'm going to try to eat it.
Yeah. Like maybe I'll try to lick it. And if I don't die, then I'll try licking it twice.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people who invented fire and who started to cook things must have been very happy and very valued within their tribe, because the smell of cooked food is pretty good.
Yeah.
Molly says offshore drilling causes a big disruption with marine life breeding. I would imagine so, yes. Oh, I'm going to look at my outline that I wrote today. Lydia, which was the first time I've ever written an outline, and see if we've covered all the things. Oh, we covered Erin Elizabeth, who is osteopath, Dr. McCullough's from the Health News Network or whatever it is, the vast distributors of false information to not only the American public, but to the international public, which has undermined vaccination rates in countries all over the world, and so facilitated outbreaks of deadly diseases, deadly vaccine preventable diseases. So one person's been deplatformed, yay. And so we had a tiny discussion about free speech versus the constraints that responsible leaders will impose when public health is under significant threat. And of course, what constitutes a significant threat will always be debated. And that's why you should have a functional democracy, so you can have a healthy debate and not just get overly attached to an insistence that all speech should be allowed and that all speech is valuable, because as we've seen with the pandemic, there are significant disadvantages to adopting that position, namely that people will die as a consequence of disinformation being spread unchecked. And then the next topic was Mike DeWine with the lottery ticket, which we talked about. And now I find the last topic that we were going to talk about, if you still want to, that your daughter has been vaccinated now. So how did that go? What was it like?
Yeah, she got her COVID shot yesterday.
Oh, you've got a puppy.
She had her shot. Yes, I know. This is Kevin. He's not a puppy, but he looks like one.
Does look like a puppy. Oh my gosh, he's a perpetual puppy. What breed of dog is that?
I know. He's a mutt.
Oh, he's a mutt. Okay.
I got him from the pound. He was from a puppy mill. He was abandoned. Yeah, she's had some minor side effects. Starting yesterday, she felt a bit achy, and then today she had a bit of a fever and chills. But nothing crazy. Her arm really hurt. That's what she told me. The actual injection was quite painless. She said it kind of hurt. She's like, when somebody tickles you, but it kind of hurts. Yeah, like, yeah. She's like, well, it kind of tickled, but it kind of hurt. No, it wasn't terrible, she said. And so she's just in her room. I gave her some Advil, and she's just resting, but she's going to be all right.
My children really look forward to flying in planes because they get to watch television. So I guess with children that you have to vaccinate, if they're going to have, a day's worth of needing to rest, you can make it like a holiday. Because getting to watch more TV than they normally are allowed is such a powerful inducement to them. My children are like, yeah, we're going to move to America. And we get to fly on a plane and watch television for hours. And then just to watch their processes of how they reconcile something to themselves. I mean, it's like, yeah, you're probably going to be miserable for a bit when you miss your friends, because we already moved you away from Australia, and I saw how hard that was for you then. But at the same time, I know you coast along for a long time on the positive energy that you anticipate with the move. And you're all hyped up on 7 hours of television or more than 7 hours. Some hopefully will be sleeping time, but they're so excited by it that it gives them momentum to embrace moving to the US. So I hope that all continues to work out for them and that they make some new friends and get to use the internet to stay in touch with their best friends as well. Marsha's glad that your daughter was vaccinated because it's part of not just glad for your daughter, but it's glad for all the young people that can have things.
I'm glad too.
Yay. And I'm glad you left the dark side.
And some good news. Yeah. And some good news, and even in my community, I live in Alberta, which is got the worst COVID rate in North America right now. And Alberta, and our government actually is, of course, conservative. So, I mean, there's kind of a pattern there. But I was very happy to hear. I went to our pharmacy today, and I asked him, because he's doing the COVID shots along with public health. So my daughter got COVID shot at public health, but he's also had numerous children sign up. I just kind of asked him, I'm like, how many kids have been signed up so far? And he said by the end of the week, he kind of tallied up like this day, but at the end of it, next week it should be almost for children. And my community is pretty small. It's like 3,500 people maybe. So that's a lot of children. So that means most of my daughter's peers are also going to be vaccinated by the end of next week. And I think that's huge. Yeah. That it's giving me hope that parents are not listening to a lot of the conspiracies and misinformation out there and just trusting the science and taking their children to get vaccinated. And I think the kids are happy to get vaccinated too. I think they want to get back to a normal school year and not have to have the threat of, having their school shut down over their head. I'm in Alberta, Canada, Sheldon. But
Alberta.
Yeah, so it was very uplifting to hear that all these had signed their children up to get shot.
I'm very uplifted by what you're saying as well, because it means there's probably a thrust. There's a thrust to the mass uptake of inertia. And that hopefully will carry some people along. We can't put too much faith in that hope. We have to also have leaders who are prepared to take steps to overcome the reluctance of those who are hesitant, to paint that enticing picture for people that when we reach a high enough rate of vaccination, then that's really a tipping point for cases to fall so significantly and hospitalizations and deaths to fall so significantly that it becomes a no-brainer of a decision to entirely open up, but that we need everyone on board. And so, yes, as Lydia points out, it's such an inducement for children to think, yes, please just vaccinate me so I can resume the life that I've been denied, the socialization, the interaction, the assist to learning that arises when you're in a classroom situation, because learning by yourself requires a lot more self-driven motivation, which makes it a lot harder for people who aren't necessarily well-resourced or well-supplied with intrinsic motivation, and they need to see their peers around them also participating in learning, and for there to be that element of fun and engagement in a classroom in order to progress through a curriculum. Phil asks Lydia if Alberta isn't a conservative cowboy agricultural oil province. That's one for you, Lydia, although her internet might be dropping out.
It is. My internet's slow, but it is a very conservative cowboy farming province. That's why I was so uplifted by the fact that all these kids are getting vaccinated, because it just, knowing our culture here, I was a little worried that I wouldn't see that. And another thing I think is parents maybe stopped and listened to in Lethbridge, is another smaller city in Alberta, a 17-year-old had so much go for her. She was, super smart, played piano, was about to start her old girl college. She had just had a wing for her whole life ahead of her, and she got COVID and died. This was, I think, a week ago, and I think that caused a lot of parents to pause and realize that this new strain that's going around is so contagious, is not the nicest to young people. So I think a lot of parents really took that story to heart. I did. I actually got vaccinated as soon as they were offering them. So I think a lot of states were on the same page. It's like when they were that poor girl. She was so healthy and vibrant, and she's a lot of parents longer, alive because of COVID.
That's a real story that would have been such a powerful counterpoint to disinformation that said the virus doesn't affect young people. And there was so much of that, and I think President Trump was one of the disinformation doesn't. He might not be included in it, but he was definitely part of the anti-mask, anti doing anything in response to COVID. So when people see a story, a true story of a single person, a healthy person, and their very existence is a counter to a lie or misinformation argument that it only affects elderly people and they probably would have died anyway, and who really cares? That either implicit or explicit argument is totally washed away by the vivid example of a young person in the prime of their life who spent their life studying hard at school to prepare for the rest of their life, and then to have that whole future thrown away in an instant or in a few days because of this disease that can be prevented by vaccination and careful behavior modifications that are widely adopted, like mask wearing and social distancing. So yes, when you think about the variants and how they're increasingly impacting younger and younger people, you can see why some people would want to continue wearing masks even once vaccinated, particularly people knowing that there might be I shouldn't just harp on about Trump, but there might be holdouts who are lying about being vaccinated or who are refusing to wear masks. It's hard to have trust if there's low compliance in your community. So I can see a move in the mainstream media to try and write it off as a mental illness, that some people are attached to the idea of mask wearing, even when there's been advice passed that you don't have to anymore. And I am happy to push back on that and say it's not a mental illness. It's not an anxiety disorder. There's a degree of just rational concern about it. So a lot of mental disorders occur on a continuum and are therefore debatable. Somebody having a dysfunctional grief reaction, or are they just really sad because they've lost somebody they really love and it's upended their life? And that can still be on the DSM-5 classified as a depressive disorder, because you have what they would call an overextensive grief reaction. And yes, so there's lots of room for debate, but I'm not going to let them malign mask wearers on my watch, because I'll say it's caution. And I personally will not wear a mask outside if I'm not around near any people, because and particularly not once I'm vaccinated. But even if I'm by myself, I would take my mask off because I'm safe. But if I see anybody, I'll put that mask back on again, because not just to protect myself.
In wintertime.
In wintertime.
Yeah. In wintertime here, it was nice to have a mask on outside. Like my kids didn't mind it either, because it actually keeps your face a little warm. I mean, Canada's like really cold. Yeah. So we actually didn't mind it in the wintertime. But yeah, no, I think, I'm not going to judge anyone for wearing a mask outside. But if you're not, I can get that too. I'm not going to be too, you need to wear your mask on. We're outdoors, but definitely indoors, you should be wearing one, and just to help. spread, or prevent the spread of COVID.
Yeah. That the variant from India is present.
It doesn't have to be that hard.
Yeah. All right. Well, I invited Molly.
I think we've got all of the variants now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I invited Molly to come on because she said before she was going to get a shirt.
My annoyed look is my internet being annoying.
I'm still grateful that the internet exists and that
I'm just
going to
go try and move my modem and see if that helps me. Just 1 sec. 1 sec.
Bye, Kevin. Bye, Lydia. See you soon. Marsha is still afraid of the variants and future waves of COVID that she believes we will see. And that's also rational. The 1918 Spanish flu pandemic occurred in waves, and there was a number of different waves. And one of the things that we can very clearly see for ourselves fuel waves of COVID is complacency. We can see complacency occur and people drop the ball. People start to say, who's bothering to wear a mask anyway? And that can be preconditions for a resurgence of the disease and for a surgence, not a resurgence, but a new surgence of variants. And it's true, variants have a stronger role to play when there is a large swathe of unvaccinated people, which is another motivation, not just to keep urging Americans to get vaccinated, but to continue to encourage wealthy governments to help vaccinate the rest of the world, because we are all in this together and we're a hyper-connected world. Travel from one place of the world to another is easy, meaning the virus has an easy passage from one part of the world to the next. We have to kind of adopt a no person left behind process in order to ensure our own safety. How's it going, Lydia?
I think I fixed my internet problem. I moved my modem to a different part of my house, and I think it's getting better reception.
The lag, you certainly responded very quickly. There wasn't a lag that time, so.
Yeah, so I have hope now.
Hooray. I'm noting, because I made the effort to start broadcasting a bit earlier today, the number of viewers is slightly higher, so that's a good inducement for me to make that effort to start broadcasting earlier. I'm sure my audience is grateful. Speaking of my treasured audience, here's Molly. I get to meet her for the first time. Is it okay to bring you up on the stage now, Molly?
Sure.
Yes. Okay.
Hi, Molly.
3 ladies.
Hello.
Hi, Molly.
Okay. Sorry. Hi.
I've been talking to you for years now, and this is the first time I've ever met you.
Aww.
Yes, my eyes are kind of watery because every neighbor decided to mow their lawn today. It was the day. So my eyes are watering. So do forgive me. I'm not crying.
You're just so overcome to finally be on stage.
I was like, oh my God, Dad. It's Dad. Yes.
So lovely to meet you. And Lydia,
nice
look at
Yun's guys too.
Nice to meet you.
I grew up in Canada.
Did you? Which province?
Oh God, I know. I grew up in Manitoba. Where's that?
That's
I left when I was 10.
Okay, so it's 2 provinces down, beside Quebec.
Quebec, yeah.
I'm in Alberta, and then it goes Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and then Quebec, and then Ontario. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. You have moose there?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah. I actually, I took pictures of caribou. We had I live in a place where there's caribou migration that happens twice a year. But it's still, because caribou are really endangered. It's a very rare sight to see them. So my daughter and I pulled over while we were driving to take pictures of the caribou, because I think I've lived out here for 13 years, and I think I've seen caribou twice. So it was a very rare
the caribou
sighting.
population is starting to dwindle.
Yeah. There's only 3. Yeah, and they're just very sensitive to changes in their environment. Like when their migration routes get disrupted, it tends to affect them.
Yeah, the pipeline didn't help much either, I
Yeah.
don't think.
Yeah, they're very sensitive to that.
That's lovely. Well, welcome to the platform.
Thank you.
So exciting to see that technology facilitates voices from Canada, from Pennsylvania, and from Asia. I'm going to call it Australasia because I'm Australian, even though I'm living at the moment in Singapore. And we've moved my departure date from here to the US a little bit further back to try and give us some more time to get vaccinated before we leave. Although everybody tells us the minute you arrive in Boston, you can get a vaccination because the system there is so good and the vaccination rates are so high. They've got some good systems in place for just vaccinating anybody who goes anywhere near Boston. But yeah, before I get on a plane, I'm still hoping to get vaccinated with 2 shots and a few weeks to develop antibodies as well, meaning I might be moving to the US in July now instead of June. Someone said, hello from Malmo. Is that in Canada as well, or is that part of, I'm not familiar with Malmo.
No, isn't Malmo in Sweden?
Oh, that would make sense because there's a little mark over the letter O.
I'm trying to kill a mosquito. Oh, got it. Ew. Oh.
And Pablo from the HAPS team has dropped in. Hello, Pablo. He says hello from Los Angeles.
Hello.
How's the vaccination rate going in Los Angeles, Pablo? We're having a bit of a COVID-themed conversation today. Yes, so it is. Everybody's right. It is Sweden, which means I'm going to need help pronouncing it. Do we say Malmo? Malmo? Somebody might drop in with some phonetic cues as to how we say it. Pablo is saying that vaccinations have started for the 12 to 16-year-olds where you are in Los Angeles, which is really exciting for children who will feel more comfortable returning to school. Because I'm sure there are some parents who, even if it's been allowed, would have potentially held their children home out of fear for a pandemic that has been known to impact children as well as adults, even though it's strongly associated with affecting adults.
There was somebody that was saying that we shouldn't vaccinate children until all of the elderly are vaccinated first and adults. And I was like, no, we should vaccinate whoever wants to be vaccinated because you're going to have lags and then vaccine thrown out and missed appointments. So no, we have to open it up to everybody. And I'm immune compromised and I've only had 1 vaccine, but my daughter getting vaccinated doesn't mean it's not her fault that I don't have my 2nd vaccine, even though it's due. Like, I'm happy to have her vaccinated. I don't feel like she's jumped a line and, I can't get fully protected. I'll get my shot when I get it. And if we can get everybody, to start their COVID vaccines, that's better.
Yes. And there's a social pressure that comes from seeing a mass of people embrace the vaccine. So because young people have that intrinsic motivation of wanting to reassume their social lives and take back what had to be taken from them, not because leaders were evil, but because there was a pandemic that had to be responded to. So they're powerfully motivated. And then that can just add to the motivation to influence the holdouts to say, see this. Every news story that they see of children rushing to get a vaccine or their parents bringing them and people lining up to do so all contributes to a type of impetus that says, get it, everyone's doing it. Peer pressure, but in a good way.
In a good way. And just seeing that everyone's still okay. Like I think that's so important. Just like, and then everyone's like, how do you know if someone's vaccinated? Don't worry, they'll tell you. Okay, I get it. But the whole point of telling people is that you can see that I'm fine and you can see so-and-so, like, so it's not like we're trying to say we're better or whatever, like or that it's trendy. It's just, we all want you to know that we got it and we're fine. So try not to be so worried about it.
That power of the wave from the other side. That's the antidote to the appeal to inaction, is the wave from the side of action saying, we've got it, we're fine. And we can hug our family with good conscience. We can attend school and go to meetings with a good conscience. And that that has an implicit power to it.
Yes.
Our city here is going to be doing the vaccinations for children at the schools. They'll send the kids home with a slip, a permission slip, and then they'll just get their vaccinations there.
That's good.
I hope I'm sure that part of that will work out really well. And I already commiserate with the public health officials and the school officials that will have to deal with holdout parents wanting to cause trouble and say, I personally have an opinion about the vaccine that conflicts with this school policy. Good luck to them. Good luck to them. I know particularly the whole mask mandates sometimes put people's lives in jeopardy that had to enforce the mask wearing rule and say to customers, sorry, you can't come in because you're not wearing a mask. And in some instances with particularly dysfunctional antisocial people, they got their guns and they killed the security staff who insisted that masks be, or that the mask wearing mandate be respected. So I hope there's no violence that occurs as a result of a vaccine uptake. But with any luck, it'll just be people will embrace that it's a necessary move for public health.
Yeah.
I personally was I was extremely upset about the mask shaming for kids, people going and harassing children about wearing masks. That really upset me.
Me too.
Tucker Carlson's inspired that, but I'm presuming there was already a groundswell of...
It's kind of scary. I just don't know how I'd react. Like my middle child has autism and, he's able to wear a mask, and understand that he's helping his community. I just can't imagine how far that would set him back if an adult went up to him and started telling him he was being wrong or bad or whatever, or mistreated for wearing a mask. I think I would just lose my mind if someone did that to my child, especially my middle son. I just, You
would, and then you'd have to have so much awkward conversations with him of like, welcome to the world of adult craziness. And now mommy has to explain to you that some adults are out of their tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, calling like children and youth services or the police. I mean, they have better things to do. And, I know our CYS here, they're understaffed.
Well,
so it could be taken away from someone who really needs to be called on. And,
And these people that are calling it child abuse, and for the record, I've also been called a child abuser for vaccinating my daughter with an experimental vaccine. But these people that call it child abuse have no idea what child abuse is. Like they really, and they're probably the last people to sign up to be foster parents. So
it's reminding me of the expression punch drunk. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
I'm about to look up what it actually means because, sometimes you think you know a word, but now I'm questioning, do I really know what punch drunk means?
I do that all the time.
Yeah, but what I'm anticipating is that it means just high on your own opinion type of thing and adversarial. But it doesn't. Okay, it means dazed or stupefied by, or as if by, a series of heavy blows to the head. So, being a little bit out of it, not because you're on medication, but because you've been punched so many times. Whereas I've seen it used in fictional writing as applying to people who are aggressive, probably because they've been punched so much, they're then feeling aggressive. But what it really just means is dazed and confused.
Yeah.
So I've learned something, but I wanted to say that those people are probably just punch drunk in terms of wanting to look for a fight. But maybe I could say they're punch drunk because they've taken so many disinformation blows to the body of knowledge that inhabits their brain that they're then confused. So I learned something. But yes, if anybody attacks a child in front of me, or I imagine in front of any of you guys, to say, how dare you, you're wearing a mask, you little sheep person, your parents should be ashamed of themselves, that some adults would be there who had a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
In response.
Yeah, I saw a couple videos and I keep wondering where, like the adult supervision. Usually at schools, they'll have teachers come out while the children are, getting onto the buses and stuff like that. It's like, where were the adults who were supposed to make sure they were safe? That was my question.
I'm going to give a shout out to Knowledge El Shabazz because it's his birthday today, and he's one of my regular listeners. So I'm just going to say happy birthday to you, Knowledge. And then we're having a little conversation in the comments section about people. Sheldon says Pfizer has the lowest amount of side effects. And apparently Nancy asserts it's more typical to have side effects with your second dose. And that reminds me, Molly, I think, it was Marsha who made a comment earlier that she's sad to see news reports where they really show the needle being very long.
Oh, that was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have an aversion to needles, but those things, some of those are really long, and my shot had a little dinky needle on it.
Yeah, my shot was not that big either.
It was like these 2-inch needles almost. I was like, ooh.
It's almost as if sometimes there's a
my daughter's not looking forward. Sorry, my daughter's just looking at someone talking about side effects. So the first one, my daughter's actually having a pretty rough go of her first shot. It's nothing over the top, but she's got a bit of a fever and chills, and so that's just after the first. But I think kids tend to have a stronger immune response to vaccination in general. So she's like, Mom, if I heard the second one's for worse, she's like, what are we gonna do? I'm like, I'll just give you Tylenol and Advil like I did today.
Yeah,
that's all we can do.
A really good movie to watch on Netflix, because television has some pain-killing properties.
Yeah,
I always tell my children that. And then they're like, okay, I'm sick. Bring me the television.
Yes.
Bring it. I bumped my elbow. Television.
She'll just have to play Minecraft all day and take Tylenol and Advil. But yeah, she had I was actually surprised for the first one. She had a pretty strong reaction.
But see, we're honest about it because we're not hiding anything. We're not trying to assume the facts into our narrative.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom intuition isn't going off. I don't feel overly worried. I'm just checking on her, like, to see if she needs anything from me. But yeah.
Well, now my husband's home and I'm going to go because I've been chatting with you lovely ladies for an hour and 37 minutes. So thank you for coming up, Molly, for the first time. So we could see your face. Very exciting.
It's nice to meet a fellow Canadian. Even though you haven't lived here in a long time. You're still one of us.
Yeah. Well, I did an internship in Montreal, a culinary internship there, but
nice.
In my 20s. But
so then you're familiar with poutine.
Oh yeah. That is life.
Yes. Do you know what that is, Davina?
It's chips with something on top. Is it gravy or chips?
It's gravy and cheese curds. If you want to be, but cheese curds. So cheese curds are like cheese in like the raw form. Like Wisconsin would have a lot of cheese curds, I think, because they're pretty into cheese there.
I'm surprised it's not popular in Wisconsin.
Yeah, because they have the squeakers, right? Yeah. In Wisconsin.
And they fry any kind of cheese.
Yeah.
Bread it and fry it. So
it's gravy and cheese curds. I've seen people use like mozzarella in a pinch, but traditionally it's cheese curds and gravy.
You can make your own.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'm gonna thank you, ladies, so much, and I'm gonna go and hang out with my husband. I just realized I've missed a lot of text messages from him while he was out, so I'm catching up with all of that now and going, yes, must book dentist appointment for me. But thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. Happy birthday, Knowledge, and I will see you again sometime soon. And
yes,
let's do this same time next week if you want to.
Yeah, I'll come back every Thursday. I don't mind. That's fun. Cool. And there's always interesting vaccine stuff coming up. Like there's definitely nothing short to talk about there. So
awesome. Well, stay well, take care. I hope your daughter feels better soon, or at least
she will.
Something that balances out the downsides of enduring the side effects while they.
Well, I'll have to buy her a boba tea. That's her favorite tea. She loves boba tea, so I'll have to go buy her one tomorrow.
Same with my husband. He copes with difficult Zoom meetings with bobas. Thank you, Sheldon. See you later. Thank you, Nancy.
Bye.
And Nancy says it's always good to get the facts as opposed to conspiracy theories. Yes, we're part of a movement of decent people to strengthen passion and enthusiasm for honest content that's not fueled by a desire to grift and sell overpriced vitamins or to sell Donald Trump merchandise. We are a fact committed,
yes,
science interested gang.
Evidence-based.
Evidence-based, yes. Evidence-based group. So thank you to all our listeners and hope to see you again sometime soon.
Bye.
Bye.